Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 13th zoning board hearing. We have two applications tonight. So this is going to be, the first application is going to be on the application of Jose Nugra of 41 Beaver Street, Milford, Mass. For a special permit relief in relation to a 1.07 acre parcel, more or less, land located on the westerly side of Beaver Street, known and numbered as 41 Beaver, which property is owned by the applicant. The applicant seeks a special permit relief to the Milford zoning bylaws in order to be able to modify backyard areas of the premises, including a concrete paved area, in order for the applicant to accommodate visitors. The petitioner further seeks to have the special permit authorize the improvement of his property and to allow the existing concrete paved area to remain intact. The applicant states that the premises are not to be utilized as a residential sports facility, nor will the applicant install any nets, turf, or any other sports equipment not otherwise permitted under the zoning bylaw. With that, the application is really confusing, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the planning board letter, and then I'm going to turn it over to town council to try and dissect what really is going on with the application, because it seems like it's not even required. So with that, the planning board reviewed this petition listed above at their regular scheduled meeting on February 4th and recommends the following. Planning board has made an unfavorable recommendation to the lack of subject matter and jurisdiction. Town planner letter indicates the application is incomplete due to the lack of sufficient site plan having been provided with the submittal. Nonetheless, the applicant requests a special permit to allow for improvement of the property and to allow the existing concrete paved area to remain intact on the subject property. Should be noted that residential sports courts are a special permit uses in the residential subject zone by ZBA per section 3.20 of the zoning bylaw. The applicant states that the premises are not being utilized as a residential sports facility, nor will the applicant install any nets, turf, or other sports equipment not otherwise permitted under the zoning bylaw. This begs the question as to why the special permit application was submitted at all for the purpose accessory use that otherwise appears to be permitted in residential districts. They find no provision in the current bylaw that permits the ZBA to act on this case, therefore recommend the applicant be dismissed and or denied. With that, Town Council Jerry Moody, can you kind of give us a
Mr.
overview?
Chairman, I will. And of course, I guess council and the applicant are here. You should certainly hear from them.
Sure.
But I'll just...
Would you rather hear from them first?
Well, they might rather hear what I have to say and they can respond. It may make sense that way. But just to reiterate what it was in the planning board letter, I mean, this application came, and as you can see by its terms, it states right in there, it is not an application for a residential sports court, so that's not what it is. It comes after, back in September of 2024, the building commission, who's here tonight, issued a cease and desist order in order to tear out what were structures that, in his view, and there's a photograph in there I think you have, was a residential sports court. In fact, they were putting in a second court at the time he found that. And there had been complaints about significant levels of activity there of the nature that is typical in these residential sports court, the volleyball and some significant crowds, noise, and problems in that regard, which is why the building commissioner was involved. So he issued his order in September, which I think you have a copy of, at least in the main file.
I do.
Okay. There was no appeal from that. As you know, that could have been appealed to this board. Very precise steps that have to be followed under the bylaw and under the statute, but there was no appeal was taken. Instead, you have this appeal that came in December of this year, and of course it came and we put it on for hearing, and here we are tonight. But I have to concur with what the town planner said. There's no relief that you can grant here. There's no special permit. Since they're not looking for a special permit for a residential sports court, I'm not certain what they're looking for. It's not an appeal from a building commissioner's decision, because that was not done in that way, and that's not what it is. The special permit, there's no special permit relief that I can see that this board has any authority to grant here. He seems to be asking in the application to keep what the commissioner views as a residential sports court and use it for when visitors premises. But that's not something that you can address. You can't make any decision in that regard, because again, in my view, there's no special permit authority here for your board to act on. So with that, I strongly recommend you hear
Yeah,
from the applicant.
I'd like to hear from the applicant and his attorney.
Where do you prefer?
Come on up and sit up here. The microphone will be right there in front of you, sir.
All right, and again, as far as the methodology that took place here, I've reviewed thoroughly your zoning bylaw. I've only just jumped into this case, but I've been doing this for 40 years, so I'm familiar with every zoning bylaw. But here's the situation. There was the letter, as you're all aware, from the building inspector interpreting this patio, really, in the backyard as being intended for some use that would require netting, a basketball hoop or fencing or pickleball or something. That's not what this is. This was intended entirely for the purpose of being able to have some sort of stable space. Apparently, sometimes it gets a little soggy out there for people to be able to come down and sit, as you would on a patio or anything like that. As a result of that determination, saying you can be subject to fines and so forth, and possible pull this thing out of here. My office issued on September 23rd a petition seeking relief under Section 1.8, which I'm sure you also have in your file. And that...
Hey, John, if I could just interject here, because this may be important, but it's not important in the final decision.
Yeah.
Your office, I think, on 9 occasions, sent the same documents to the legal department, and each time Melissa responded either orally or in writing that that's not how you do it. If you're going to file something, you have to file with the town clerk under the statute and under our bylaw. 9 times she did that. Finally, you filed something in December. So it kept coming and coming and coming, and we couldn't get your office to understand the right way to do it.
Yeah, and I...
In addition to that, the town planner likes to check off at that same time frame to make sure all the documents are also included in the package, and that would be corrected if something was missing.
Right. And again, like I say, from a procedural
Yes, John?
standpoint,
I mean, if the way this conversation's going, if we're going to listen to this presentation about how this is for a soggy area, I'd ask you guys to show him the pictures of the net and everything else that was set up as a residential sports court. If he wants to get to his point of having whatever he wants to bring before you, one thing, but if he wants to misrepresent what's happened over the last several months, I would ask you to show him the picture of the net and then tell him...
It's still up as of today.
And I don't even know that. I didn't go there
Still up as
today.
of today.
So ask him how the nets are stopping the soggy turf from preventing people to sit down in a family
Pictures
gathering.
right here of the nets.
If it's helpful to the board members, there's additional copies of what you have in your file, Mr. Chairman, so that other members can look at it. That's the stop work order, and I have one for you if you have it. That's the stop work order. I think I have it. With pictures attached to it were taken at that time by the building commissioner.
So, in light of this, you have not kicked in the daily fine for not correcting the situation, is that correct?
No, there's other steps he'd have to take to do that.
Okay.
So he has, John has issued the order. As far as we know right now, the activity is stopped because it's winter, if nothing else. But so he has not taken the next steps he might take if he needed to go to Superior Court or Land Court or District Court to get further enforcement. That could still happen.
John?
And my point is that what's being represented here tonight is really not what has taken place there.
Right.
So the story's not even starting out there. However you guys want to proceed, it's obviously within your purview.
Okay.
Well, what I would say, and I see what you're presenting here, and I see what looks like a poll and a couple of items that are up. I don't see that, based on what is being put into these petitions, again, starting, and if procedurally someone in my office initiated this September 23rd, making reference to Section 1.8, directing it to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Yeah, I understand you've got different different procedures to talk about, the filing and so forth. The intent here was to try to put the brakes on the actions to either impose fines or cause this to have to be dismantled. What my client is saying, and has been saying since September, and again when the town had said, put your special permit in, pay us the fee, and submit site plans and so forth. As I go through the reading of the bylaws as they relate to site plans in particular, typically that continues to make reference to occupancy. No one's going to occupy this patio, and my client's statements are that he is not going to have any sort of recreational activity going on there other than using it as a seating area. So if there are any poles that were put up for whatever reason, whether it's to direct lighting as they're completing this pad or whatever, that will not be in place according to what he's describing now and has been since, like I say, since September, and again, repeating it in a special permit.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that or is that not a volleyball court?
I can't tell from this picture
I
what
can.
that is. It's a colored picture, but it looks like there's some sort of
The volleyball court.
wire or something.
So let's move this forward.
Yeah.
So what is your point in being here tonight?
The point here is to have validation that this pad will not be used for recreational purposes, but it can remain in place as a typical accessory use as you would have with a patio or something else. Just this concrete pad, not to be used in violation. If you had a swimming pool, which is permissible under your bylaws, and you were to drain it and allow kids on skateboards to go through, that would convert a legitimate use into a illegitimate use. It would become a sports facility, a sporting court. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
This
do.
is not...
So right now, you're just worried about keeping the structure,
Just want to
correct?
keep the structure.
And that's a determination that the board will need to make. But
Mr.
I'd
Chairman,
like to-
let me just interject for a minute. There's really no determination a board can make at all. What he's talking about is a discussion that he maybe should have had or could have with the building commissioner. Does not involve this board. Your board has nothing to do here, except to tell him to make sure he complies with the zoning bylaw, and if he's got enforcement dealings with the building commissioner, deal with the building commissioner. Your board can't just make a declaratory judgment when you have no jurisdiction and nothing to do, like a court.
Don't have
Don't
any
do
jurisdiction on
that.
this.
So however you may feel about the background, you can't, there's no action your board can take.
What I would suggest then is, you've heard what our argument is. You know what the intention here is, just to not have a continuation of a notification. And that's a discussion that can and should be taking place.
Well, you
with-
should probably take the net down, right?
The net will have to come down. There will have to be nothing in there that gives...
That would be a good start, though,
Right,
right?
that gives any impression whatsoever that this is intended for anything having to do with any sporting activity whatsoever.
It was used like that, and he basically says you can't use it like that,
Yep,
and then he didn't take it down.
okay.
So he probably should stop by taking it down.
Yeah, and that is a perfectly acceptable way to be addressing what the concerns were, is to not have any sort of, anything that appears to be a sporting facility. But in keeping with that, if there's no net, then there is, or should be, no continuation of the enforcement that was
Mr.
directed.
Chairman, that's not a determination that this board can or should make. They can't.
And if
You
that-
have to, if you've got an issue with enforcement, then not tonight, but you deal, as you probably should, not you, but should have over the last 3 or 4 months, deal with the enforcement authority who issued the order. This board has nothing to do with that.
Right.
So
And under your bylaws, you've got that provision about withdrawing, applications and so forth. Usually initially it's at the, prior to the notification stage, but there's a provision in there that also allows for a withdrawal.
So you want to withdraw your application?
Yeah, and I think 75% of the board has to agree to that under the
Sure, they have to
bylaw.
vote on that, yes.
Do you have a question? You raised your hand, sir.
Yeah, there seems to be a concrete wall patio that was built. I would say that it's within 10 to 15 feet of the wetlands, which I was wondering if the applicant went in front of the Conservation Board before they constructed the patio in the block wall.
Yes.
You have a permit from the Conservation Board?
No, so I became very close to the conservation lady that works here. I talked to her through when I thought of building the wall, and they don't know if it's wetland or not because of how it seems with all the trees that are there. Like her recommendation was just to put. I don't know what the
Silt fence?
No, it's
Anything that's close to the wetlands, you got to follow.
yeah, water.
Yeah, if it's within,
I do think the town engineer has been involved in this situation, so I don't think there's an issue. I mean, there might be an issue as far as this maybe something that should have or has to have been done, but I think he has done it in accordance with what the town engineer.
There's no violation of the wetlands.
Not as far as I know, and I only.
So here's my comment, and I'm going to be very upfront.
I know there's wetlands in the front of that piece of property. I know.
I want to make a comment, and then and frankly, I'm not going to probably agree with a withdrawal. There's a private parking lot, and I've been by that site when there's been parties. There's a private parking lot being used by the people that are going to these parties. So I can tell you right now, if that parking lot is utilized in the future for these parties, those vehicles will probably be towed.
absolutely.
And again, and there was a lot of them.
Yep.
80, 100 of them. So what I'm going to say is, I will take a motion to deny the application, and that's up to board members if they want to second that.
I think he wants to withdraw it, doesn't he?
My preference, Mr. Chairman, is to withdraw it because, and the reason I say that is because there are ramifications for the denial.
That's correct.
Yeah, and what I'm indicating is, from the good faith efforts of removal of anything that appears to be...
This should have been addressed months ago, when the violation was issued.
Certainly. But if there's anything going on in terms of creating any sort of a nuisance in the community with respect to vehicles being parked where they shouldn't be parked, or any activity that causes,
The complaints of a lot of noise, 3 a.m., 4 a.m.
And there's a remedy for that.
Let's go back to this, you're not sure what this is. You see the boundary lines around the whole pad?
Yeah.
That's called the volleyball court. That's the end of that discussion.
Yes, Dave?
Yeah, I drove by today around 1:30, and I counted there was 6 white vans there, and there were 3 trailers. The vans were parked in front of the garage, and then the 2 were parked, and the tires are out on the street. So it seems like right now it's being used as a commercial parking lot. And this was in the middle of the day. So it seems like they're storing commercial vehicles there, and it is a residence.
And
Brand new windows, I noticed.
if I may say something,
With permission?
the inspector knows as well that we just got an inspection done for the work being done inside, and all the vans that were there today, and we're actually working inside the house. As
Were the permits pulled, John?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there have been several permits pulled for work on siding, interior renovation.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what the vehicles were there for, and, this is outside of this board's consideration, but if there are illegal activities there, we will go a different route with enforcement. We'll go with either the 21D fines or look for an injunction at housing court, or both. So, the activities that they're recognizing tonight might not be in the purview of
This board.
the zoning board, but they're in the purview of my enforcement, and we will continue that enforcement.
Okay.
And because of this appeal, we've not moved forward with some of these things, but these issues, but we will as this progresses.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just address momentarily the question of the withdrawal versus a denial. And I understand what the attorney says. Normally, a denial has repercussions. When you apply for a special permit and you get a denial, you can't come back for a couple of years. That really doesn't apply here. I understand I don't have a preference one way or the other, whether it's with withdrawal or denial. So it makes no difference because it shouldn't be here in the first place. So a denial really has no negative effect on any future activity because they really never applied for a valid special permit. So that they lose nothing with a denial. But again, I don't have a preference to whatever your board
So what are we
wants to do.
voting on?
I don't see
You're
what,
going to vote to deny it or to approve a
It's not
withdrawal.
going to matter.
I don't see what we're voting on. What part of the bylaw are we voting on?
Because that's the whole point.
Why are we even
Why are we
here?
voting?
You're here because an application is filed, and you have to have a hearing when there's an application.
But I think it's non-existent.
Well, you're either going to allow him to withdraw it or deny it. one or the other.
If I may jump in, too, if,
Deny the application. You have an application that is applying for something you don't have the power to do, so you either deny it or you allow them to.
I make a motion to deny it.
if I may jump in before the second on that.
There's a second.
Okay. If I may just jump in on that, too. A couple of things. One, there's ramifications for any activity that's disturbing the neighbors. You call the police. The police will issue a disorderly house and bring them in on a magistrate's hearing. There are remedies, all sorts of remedies for this. If this application is, as was indicated in some of the correspondence, that you don't have jurisdiction, then my point being, then allow us to do what we're requesting then, which is to withdraw this with the approval of the board, and then make sure, my client obviously has that responsibility, that any activities are in concert with what the building inspector is looking for, that there are no activities that are anyway violating any local ordinances or any law enforcement matters.
Yeah, and again, there's a motion on the table to deny, and again, this should have been addressed with the building department months ago, and it clearly wasn't. If the denial or the withdrawal doesn't have really much of an impact, I'll second the denial, and we'll take a vote on the denial, and if you want to go down the road and we don't have the votes for that, we'll take the withdrawal.
And I agree with the chair. Unfortunately, this came to my attention a day and a half ago, this entire matter. But what I'm saying here is, given all of the correspondence, all the activity, all of the history, and all the representations that have been made by the applicant, if the board doesn't feel like it has jurisdiction over this matter, then I would suggest the appropriate way would be to allow for the withdrawal and then have the parties do what they probably should have been doing back in September. But having said that, no further activity on the court that would cause the building inspector to be concerned, and have the applicant work openly and continuously with the building inspector to make sure that there are no other mistakes.
And that's between the two of you. That we have nothing to do with it once again.
Right. I'm just trying to avoid the ramifications realistically.
According to council.
Well, council, there is no ramification.
Yeah, I've been here for 45 years as being town council here,
Got five
roughly.
seniority over.
And I can't imagine, when there's no jurisdiction for them to grant anything, then the denial does not affect you in
So why are we
any
voting
other
for
way. Enforcement will go forward or not, depending on the circumstances. If you were going to apply for a special permit, you could apply for a special permit,
Yeah,
where there's a valid basis for the board to grant it.
I just want, based on the fact that this notification went out back in September, that my client's insisting that he's not going to do anything that's going to impair any sort of bylaw in the town, and I'm kind of putting the brakes on what started on September 17th to make sure that we can have a restart.
Well, again, that's something you should sit with the building commissioner on. It's not really for this board.
But I just don't want to have a denial come out of this that then may be deemed in one
I
form
don't know
or
how.
another.
I couldn't even creatively think of how that would affect you. I really
I mean,
couldn't.
somebody can.
Well, somebody can, but I can't.
I
so
know.
I'm gone.
And that's all I'm trying to avoid, is that.
So again, we have a motion for a denial, there's a second. I'll take a vote on that. If we don't have the votes on that, then we can go down to withdrawal, but,
Aye.
deny?
Deny.
Deny?
I
Deny.
deny.
That's 4 in favor of the denial. Therefore, my suggestion is go back to where this all started and try and correct things, but let's hope we don't have further problems with these violations. And thanks, the building inspector, for coming in tonight. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, any other comments?
No, thank you very much for your
Okay.
time and attention.
This hearing is currently over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to put, there's a couple of copies, I'm going to put this in here. While you guys are getting set up, I'll go through the notes from the last meeting, board members. So we have two. These are the minutes for January 9th.
What's that?
Everything good?
Yeah. I gotta sit
We have a
down.
motion. Motion by Mark, is there a second? Dave? Who seconded that? Bobby, second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, that's unanimous. And then we have the minutes from January 16th. I have reviewed. Is there a motion? Motion by Mark. Is there a second? Bobby?
Second.
Second by Bob. All those in favor? Opposed? I believe, was Mr. Pine on this one? He may not have been on this one. Sewer department, yeah. One, Pine wasn't on this one. So it's 1, 2, 4 in favor, 1 abstention.
I know. I know.
Okay. Can you pass these on to Melissa for me, please?
Right here.
All right, this is on the continuing application of the Gutierrez Company, 200 Summit Drive, Burlington, for a comprehensive permit, General Laws, Chapter 40B, in relation to a 25 plus or minus 2 acre parcel of land shown on lots off of Deer Street, shown as Assessors Map Sheet 14, Lot 4. The petitioner proposes to develop and construct a 150-unit rental development on the site with not less than 37 of the units to be restricted as affordable and low to moderate income, pursuant to applicable provisions of the law and the requirements of the financing agency. Project eligibility letter was issued by Mass Housing in relation to the site on October 2024. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Israel. There you are. We've got a ton of paperwork here, Israel, so let's continue where we left off. Looks like some progress is being made.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Israel Lopez with the Gutierrez Company. We have covered, I think, a lot of ground with the peer reviewers as well since our last hearing, but I want to start with the most important topic, which I believe is the situation with the bus shelter.
Big one.
And so what I've done...
You got revised there?
I do. I have a number, I sent what I'm about to...
Email.
Yeah, what I'm about to hand out to
Thanks.
Mr. Moody yesterday, but I thought I would, have hard copies. Sorry about that. Thank you. And I'd like to just run through some of the work that we've been doing in the conversations and meetings that we've had with the number of members of the school committee, or rather the school department. So what I'd like to do is just sort of run through what's provided for in this memo. I have some exhibits that I can also show, but I just want to start off by saying that since our last meeting, we did meet with the school superintendent, the transportation director, Jim Legore, members from the school bus committee, or bus department, as well as town council and the chair. And those meetings were very informative, very helpful, and I really want to stress the collaborative nature of those meetings. They're very, very helpful to understand the issues that the school is facing and also the bus company faces in terms of school pickup pickup and drop-off. So what we've done is we've essentially looked at the situation with where we can locate a bus shelter to provide a bus pickup location for the project. And we understand that, there are lots of different stakeholders involved. The school committee has to weigh in. There are a lot of different, considerations. So what we wanted to do was provide a couple of options to the ZBA, both of which we think are very viable, very workable, and really just commit to working with the ZBA and the school to implement whichever one of these options is deemed the most appropriate. So the first thing that we did was just to look at the existing situation, where the current school bus drop-off and pickup is, and currently it's happening. I provided just a picture there of where it's currently happening, but it's right at the corner of Cedar Street and Deer Street. Kids essentially walk down the sidewalk from the existing Phase 1 project, and the bus does its pickup and drop-off at that location. The pickup and drop-off always happens on the east side of the street, the same side that the project is located on as you walk down. And so kids are getting on and off at that location. So essentially what we would do is we would install a bus shelter at that corner. It would involve bumping out the sidewalk that's currently there now. There are wetlands that are there, but we would work with the Conservation Commission to get that approved. We think it's obviously a very important thing, and we think the Conservation Commission, given the minimal impact that would be required, would view that favorably. Kids currently, in terms of the distance, just for point of reference, walking down from the furthest point within the development, so the Phase 3 site, to that corner is about the same distance as someone starting off in Walden Way and walking down to where their current pickup location is at the intersection of Cedar Street and Walden Way.
Yes.
It's, I actually have that figure.
About 1800?
It's about a 14-minute walk. It's 0.6 miles.
14-minute walk
Yep.
for kids.
Yes.
Let him go through it. I'm just asking a question, David.
Yeah, no, and again, that's
It's in here.
the furthest distance. Obviously, from the Phase 1 project, it's about half that distance. It's about a 7-minute walk. So that's, in terms of other comparable locations within Milford, same thing down by Zane Circle. If you're down at the end of Zane Circle and you're walking up to Medway or to East Main Street for the pickup, you're walking about the same distance. That's the first option that we're proposing in terms of where to locate a bus shelter. It essentially maintains the current pickup, and the buses don't have to come onto Deer Street in order to do the pickup. The second option that we looked at, and first, I just want to provide a little bit of background in terms of the process to figure out where we could locate a bus shelter other than, down at the intersection of Deer Street and Cedar Street. And, this graphic just shows the constraints that we have to live with on the site. There's conservation lands, essentially, or wetlands that abut directly across the roadway. So we looked at, really anywhere that we could locate a bus shelter.
We actually tried to figure out if we could do a turnaround right there at Stone Ridge 1.
Correct. We looked at doing a turnaround before you come on to, sort of where the public portion of Deer Street ends. We looked at doing a turnaround in this location. Unfortunately, and I was hopeful that there was enough of a setback from where that conservation restriction is that we could fit a bus turnaround in there, but there just isn't enough space to do that. And so this area is entirely restricted in perpetuity. You can't put pavement on it, you can't do anything to it, and so unfortunately, that's not an option. What we did sort of do is provide a modification to the proposed project site and created a turnaround at the project site. These around this way, so that these look the same way.
Can you just come up for 1 second? Did we look at a turnaround right here?
Yeah,
We
did.
We did?
We
But-
did.
And then what about this, using this as a turnaround? That didn't work either?
Well, this area is on the Phase 1 lot. And again, while that turnaround, that area there wouldn't be as big, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't fit,
That's bigger is
essentially.
what you're saying.
This is much bigger.
Okay.
And so one of the things
Where is that? Is that right here?
That's right there. There's also a large blow-up of this. I have that same exhibit included in the packet.
Yeah.
I think it's the next page. Right there.
Yep, this one. Yeah.
So one of the things that we heard from Jim LaVore, the transportation director, was that they wanted to make sure that whatever we designed could accommodate the largest Milford school bus, which is a 77-passenger bus. And so that's what we were using as our template to figure out the turnarounds. And we looked, by the way, we looked at, even in this scenario here, we looked at creating a turnaround in this same area where Mr. Pine was pointing at, where you would just kind of do a three-point turn and back in, and then pull back out to see whether that would work. But again, it's just,
Too tight. Yeah.
it's too tight and it's restricted, so that didn't work. But we do think that this works really well. And so this would require a modification to the plans that we originally submitted.
Is that my heliport?
This is your heliport right in there. So it maintains the heliport, which is 100-foot diameter, with 25 feet on either side. So the roadway would come in, and buses would locate a bus shelter right here. Sidewalks connect the entire project site, so kids could walk, crosswalk, bus shelter here, and then the buses would turn around. There's no parking that's located around here, with the exception of these few spaces, which are part of the Phase 2 site. We would propose eliminating one parking spot from the Phase 2 site, just so that as the bus turns around, you don't have a car backing into that turnaround. And then similarly, we would propose eliminating 4 parking spaces from this parking area, again, so that when the bus is turning around and you have a car maybe overhanging that's parked a little bit too far forward, the bus doesn't, clip any vehicle as it's coming around. But this would, this is about as big as wide as a football field. It's about 160 feet, so you've got 100 feet in the middle, 25 feet, for 24 feet for the pavement area, and then, there's probably another 30 or 40 feet here. So this area would remain as lawn. We'd love to put a big flagpole there, but we can't, because if anyone ever needs to land there, then, that would be in the way. But we think this provides a really nice solution for the overall project. We would have to coordinate with the Phase 2 owner, which we think that, they would support this because it would benefit them as well. But we understand that the school committee, has a say in whether, this gets adopted. What we would,
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to finish by saying that what we would do is we would commit to building either.
Yeah.
And we would be comfortable even with the condition that said if the board prefers this option, we would be comfortable saying, we'll commit to do this option, and if for whatever reason the school doesn't approve that, we'll commit to do the other option down at the base of Cedar Street and Deer Street.
Is the where on the map below, on the floor, is the one on top?
Right here. This circle,
The further circle, okay.
yes, is this what,
Is that one?
is
Okay.
that circle there.
Okay.
Did the school department give you any indication as to how many buses that we were talking about? Like in a day, would it be 3 or 4?
It's 3. It's 3.
The little
3 in the
kids,
morning,
the little kids.
3 in the afternoon.
3 in the afternoon, okay. All right, and do you, in retrospectively, like, we're guessing at the number. We're probably looking at potentially 70 kids if we're guessing between the 1, 2, 3, probably.
There's 23 in the first phase, so I think that's
It's probably
in the ballpark, yes.
a fair guess, okay. So I do like this, that looks great to me. The only thing that I would probably ask is that with, potentially 70 kids, that maybe we do like two covered places there, because the moms with the little kids will sit there or whatever like this. I don't like the other one only down at the other end, because like I was there this morning at 8:30 and there was some 3 guys. They were starting up at 8:30 and they were shoveling. 3 guys were shoveling all the way, so it's hard to, like this morning, it's rainy, it's snowy, it's icy, and it's hard to clear that much space, and you're not going to do it by hand or whatever. So this layout works for me.
My preference as a father, I've got 2 daughters, would be this, option also. I think what'll end up happening is the folks that live in this building, the lobby is right there.
Right.
So they would probably just stay in the lobby, wait in the lobby, and come out, and this would really just be for the other 2 phases. We would size the bus shelter appropriately.
Yeah, because it can't be for 3 people, and you're going to have, it's got to be, for maybe 10 or 15 people, I guess, you know what I mean, would be.
Right. And there's plenty of room, this could be twice as big.
Yeah.
It could, by the way, also be, perhaps in this location. So there's
Correct.
room here to
Right.
locate it, working with the school department at a place where they think it's appropriate, and we would be comfortable with a condition that, said that we'd have to have the school, approve the plan, the location of the bus shelter.
This is kid safety, paramount. I don't care. There's no bylaw preventing the school department from busing up here, especially when you have that many kids that are going to be in this development. Not only that, but the accessibility aspect of kids getting on and off the bus safely is by far the most important part of this whole project. Saying that, they're coming up, and let me see, so the doors are on the right-hand side. So as the school department comes up, they may stop on Deer Street and have a section of kids coming in as he goes up to come in and turn around. I see maybe a future issue with a major emergency where we've got all the apparatus dumping up to this cul-de-sac in an emergency, and we won't be able to get a freaking helicopter in there.
So that brings me to my next slide, because I know that was something that has been brought up, and I wanted to address that.
Can I just cut you off really quick while you have that one? You had mentioned that you took off, I think, 4 or 5 parking spots. What's that lower right? Is that more parking spots? I guess up higher that abuts
The other
this
buses.
circle?
The other buses, to the right.
To the right?
To the right.
In other words, you didn't want people backing into that circle. Is this more spots that
Those
people
are,
would...
correct, those are existing spots.
So wouldn't it be the same rationale where people back in?
It would. I didn't want to take too much license because this is the Phase 2 owner, so we don't control that side, but we would.
And they wouldn't be parking there, the school buses wouldn't be stopped there. They needed to be stopped at first section or the second section to pick up the kids. They'd just be pulling out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I also want to mention before I forget, we had our traffic engineer review this option, review the other option as well. They made some suggestions for additional signage that we'd want to put in just to notify cars of the bus stop location. They looked at, site distances and basically just the whole operation of this proposal. And it included that in the peer review, so the transportation, or the traffic engineer looked at that as well as part of the peer review.
How was the school department's response to this concept?
I will tell you, perhaps unofficially, that I think, from the transportation director's standpoint, that they could see this as being a viable option. If there were the mandate to do it, they would do it. I think the bigger issue is convincing the bus company that, that they want to come on here and come on the site. I think from the school's perspective, from at least speaking based on my
The meeting
conversation.
with the bus company, they didn't care for this?
The bus company preferred not to come on.
Well, that's,
That can be, that
they
can-
don't care about the safety of the kids, we do.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that can be dealt with, too, after, I mean, this is obviously going to take a while to construct, and in that time, there may be, and we'll talk to town council about this, too, but there may be things that can be done that can satisfy both the school committee and the bus company to make this an accepted private way, for instance, or even a public way. There are things that can be done to alleviate those
Yeah, that's-
concerns.
This whole thing is one stop, correct?
Yes,
All the kids go to one stop.
that's what's
Well,
being
there's 3 different
proposed.
buses.
I know that.
Yeah, we've just proposed one bus shelter.
Right.
If,
I'm just keep thinking of my young granddaughter walking a half a mile to get to the bus. Because in my mind, and I'm not 100% sure, there's no other location where buses pick up their children a half a mile away. I don't know of any other student in this town that walks a half a mile to get to a bus. Now, you picture a 7-year-old at 20 degrees walking to the bus?
happen
yeah.
I'm David, I'm asking the question.
There could be, like, some of the other condo places, they might have to walk a little distance to get to the bus stop.
course they
Well,
do.
David,
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be.
Jane Reed does.
It could be.
I actually,
let me finish.
yes.
Ken, is it possible to make 2 stops in that loop? I realize the transportation department doesn't want to do it, the buses don't want to do it, it's a time factor, this, that. I realize all that.
They're coming up the road, there's going to be stops going up. This is just a turn around and come back down.
There's one stop, you just said it.
They got, they're not going to have
The
more
kids
than
are all
one
going to one
stop.
stop.
So currently, the clubhouse for the Phase 1 project, fronts is very close to where Deer Street runs past. It's conceivable that, when I've followed the school bus around town and I see sort of, what they do, they pull into different places, whether it's, on paper, that way or not, they do make, those kinds of accommodations. There's no reason why, the bus couldn't pull in to this, area here, kids file out of the lobby, in this clubhouse, which is open all the time, or it's accessible to the residents all the time, get on the bus, and the bus can continue and pick up, the second batch of kids at this bus stop location. So,
Doesn't that make more sense, safety-wise and otherwise?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But this is closer.
Yeah, you only,
Going all the way
if
down
you're
Deer
at Stone Ridge 1 and you're walking up to this location, it's probably only like a 3-minute walk, as opposed to if you gotta walk
All the way down.
all the way down the street, which is a 14-minute walk.
14-minute walk.
Yeah, so but Stone Ridge 1 to go to this location is probably like 3-minute walk, which is really nice.
Oh, we still have a 14-minute walk in here somewhere if we don't have 2 stops.
No. If-
Correct. No, the 14-minute walk would have been from the front door of the proposed Phase 3 all the way
Right.
to there.
Right.
That's the 14-minute walk. This is about, half that, 7 minutes roughly, and then from here to here, again, that's probably,
Right.
4 or 5 minutes maybe.
So all the children there, the maximum they're going to be walking to a bus is 4 to 5 minutes.
Yes,
Based on this.
correct, based on this,
yes.
based on that, on this option, yes.
Okay. So the 14-minute walk that you have in the notes you gave us is now eliminated.
Correct.
Okay,
If the board opts
Thank you.
for this, yes.
So saying that, before he gets into the heliport, this is going to be a while before it's constructed.
Yeah.
So there's still currently Phase 1 and 2 will still be going down the end of Deer Street.
That's correct.
until this gets done.
It should have been done in phase 1 or 2.
The only
Obviously, it
thing, the
wasn't.
only thing would be that more than likely this here would probably be in place before occupancy was even issued,
Right, Israel?
more or less.
Right.
More or less. Not that you can use it, but
Right. The emergency evacuation area was going to be constructed as part of this phase anyway.
Right.
Because that was part of
correct,
that.
the last phase.
Correct. So, that phase is currently under construction. Phase 2 is currently under construction, and it's probably, 18 months before that is done, and, this area gets built out.
Okay, I
So,
like what I see so far.
so
Now it's a question of whether or
Just as long
not,
as we want to see the bus overhang just big enough to, 15 people or whatever like that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
because they're all
But
coming.
thank you,
buses are coming at different
thank you,
times,
that
so-
looks very good.
okay. Thank you. So what I did was also just want to go back a little bit and provide kind of where this project started originally, just to provide context, also from a safety standpoint. This is, and by the way, I have these as a handout also. Apologize.
That's mine.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is just the plan that was originally approved when it was a 625,000 square foot office building, just to show generally the original layout of the road, just to show that it's essentially unchanged in terms of the way that the road is laid out, as
It was originally approved.
as it was originally approved, with a loop road that we've more or less maintained as this thing has morphed into a residential project. But there was a loop road with 4 buildings. You can see that all of the constraints with the conservation restricted land or, wetlands or all that, none of that stuff has changed. In terms of the number of vehicles that were projected to be on-site, traversing up and down this roadway. Originally, it was 5,470 vehicle trips per day when this was envisioned as office versus 4,358 trips per day as residential. This assumes the 150 units, is in there. So a 20% reduction in the number of trips to the site, a 38% reduction in the number of parking spaces. And I understand people weren't living here, weren't going to be living here when this was originally envisioned as an office development. But there also weren't any designated, the roadway was the same and there weren't any designated landing areas, or any emergency evacuation areas. What we're proposing as part of Phase 1 and Phase 2 are the 2 main areas that we've been discussing, which are the 150 feet area and this area, 150 feet from the standpoint of a helicopter being able to come down. It can come down in this area. A portion of this area has a low retaining wall, but as approved by the fire chief, anything, that retaining wall is okay. It wouldn't impede, a vehicle from being able to land there. So we have those 2 areas. We also have this area that, essentially what I did was I went back and said, where could we find additional room to accommodate in, the zombie apocalypse, another either, helicopter landing or emergency, evacuation area. And it's a little bit small to see in this plan. I have a bigger blow-up of this, but essentially, this is the area that we've designated kind of just as open, what we're calling the event green space. It's generally just open green space that the residents can use to, have a movie night outdoors or, anything like that. But it's really just intended to be open green space next to the dog park. And this area can accommodate, it's 100 feet in diameter, which is the critical dimension that the fire chief had requested that we always maintain unobstructed. I would say it would be overkill to create this as another emergency easement area, but I think, we would be comfortable with the condition that required this area to, if you have some plantings there, that they be low shrubs so that, in an emergency, this can kind of also function as potentially a landing area, in which case, you'd have this area, you'd have the emergency designation area there. And then I went back and I just looked at the plans for the Restaurant Depot facility in the truck dock, which doesn't, rarely has, all the trucks, but even if you exclude the area where the trucks would be, you still have over 100 feet in diameter with no light poles where you could, potentially also use as a landing area. And that's on this side, of the development. But, I think in terms of places where you could set up emergency response, I think there are a number of places that the site can accommodate, and, certainly more than what was ever planned originally when this was originally approved. So that's
The storm water basin that you have over there,
yeah.
that area there,
Yeah, so that area slopes down quite a bit. The basin isn't drawn in, but basically behind the garages,
slope down?
it slopes
into the
down
basin?
significantly, and then the basin itself is carved out.
Right.
And then beyond that, it continues to go down, even beyond where the basin is.
That's not an underground vortex basin, that's natural.
Yes, it's not. We did look at that. Essentially, everything around here is wetland.
Right.
And there's the wetland replication area. And then you have, you can probably see it better in this one. You have the conservation land that pinches in here. So this little pocket in between the wetland and the conservation land is what this lawn area is. And that's really the only other available pocket.
Would it be more efficient to do two buildings instead of that L shape?
We looked at that. This is the most efficient layout. Kind of consolidates everything into the center of the site.
So that recreation area, currently right now, there's a dog park associated with that, is that correct or no?
Dog park sits outside, so I think I have it. Let's see. I have it over there, actually. I know, Greg. Here we go. Here's the dog park, which is, so that's separate. That's 3,290 square feet. And then the lawn area is adjacent to that. And then the patio and the pool and all of that stuff is separate.
So what's the area of the recreation area? I know you got a lot of shrubbery in there, but what's that?
13,000 square feet. It's about, I think I had it, 0.3 acres.
So it's how wide by how wide?
It's 100 feet diameter. Well, I fit a 100-foot diameter circle in there. It's longer than that, but in terms of that, it can accommodate a 100-foot diameter in the center, and then there's room on
I
it.
could do movie nights on the other one where the emergency area is.
It could.
I'm just, no, frankly, I like what you've done here for the bus. I'm just trying to think outside the box. If we had an emergency up there and you've got fire apparatus all over the place.
Well, generally, of course,
It shouldn't be in the green area.
Yeah, so this pathway here, which is 20 feet wide to accommodate emergency vehicles all along, this end, fire apparatus can come in here, mount here. So also there's a lot of room in this area, which is
To
stage, and then kind of get access either here or towards the front of the building. And then similarly, I guess you could, stage up here and then mount from this side.
Yeah, I mean, if you can control the vegetation of what you're planting over there without, so there's an additional room in case we need to land a second one, that may not be a bad idea.
And we did look at the grading here also. SMMA, there's only about a 2% grade, which, is not unlike some of the grading in the parking lot, so it's relatively flat.
You can probably design it to be flat, similar to the one with the bus stop, right? In the center of the
Yes.
bus stop.
Israel, what's below that recreation area?
Right in here?
Further south?
It's all wetlands.
It's all wet.
It's wetlands in there? Okay.
Yeah, see, I'm sorry, in this, this blue signifies the wetlands,
Yeah.
which is, this little area in here is the,
I didn't know there was a little, right below that, there was a little, up above the one that's on the
Oh, here?
easel.
In here?
Down below,
Down in there?
no,
in here.
right there.
That's it's also a wetland, it's a replication area.
Oh,
So it's delineated separately, but it's all essentially one wetland.
gotcha.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions from board members? Any questions, comments?
Yeah, just, did you have a chance to look into, like, the crosswalk going across, was it 16?
We did, and we also, going across Cedar Street
Yes.
towards the, yeah, so, we spoke with our traffic engineer about that. So right now, you wouldn't want to have just an unsignalized crosswalk, even with a flashing yellow beacon, just given the traffic along
Yeah.
Cedar Street. The right way to do it would be when Phase 2 is constructed, there's going to be a test to look at the traffic volumes again at 85% occupancy of that project. At that point, a traffic signal light could be triggered at the intersection there.
Based on
Traffic. And if the town were to want to install a signal light there, that would be the opportunity to do it. Then you could put a signal light, you have a crosswalk, and it's all designed, and it works. The signal light will work with the other signal lights along Cedar Street. But doing a crosswalk just right now with a flashing yellow beacon, there's no sidewalk on the other side. So it would actually potentially create more accidents as people were trying to.
So you would say
You could
that,
do a beacon like Walden Woods did with the crosswalk.
you would say that the only place people are going is they're going to the gas station because of the convenience store. Would that be correct?
Generally, I would.
Then, so, if you come up here for a second. So, I kind of was there today and I looked at this, like, why couldn't you have here, this is the bike trail, and then if you put like a sidewalk in right here, going across this way, going across to the gas station, like if people could come down here, go on the bike trail right here, cross the street right there. And then that way, like, there wouldn't have to be a sidewalk put in across the street to come down. It would be easier. You might have to still put a light in, but it would be, there would be no sidewalk because you'd be crossing. It would be, might be good for the people in the summer using the bike trail. They can stop there if they got to run over to the gas station too, whatever. But I thought of that today.
Yeah, who's in control of that land? Town of
Probably
Milford?
town-owned land.
Next to the road, next to Cedar Street?
Yeah.
Well, anything that goes on in Cedar Street, the state's got to approve, so.
Right.
Yeah.
There may be town-owned land there too, but
Yeah, but
it's
the
mostly the state,
the
I
upper
think.
trail, the bike trail's right there. Good
Yeah.
point, Dave.
Yeah.
We can put a path right there and a cross lot right there with one of those flashes like Walden Woods there.
You have to cross, I mean, not, you're not talking about on Cedar Street, you're talking about at the crosswalk.
I'll show you.
Sure, yeah. That makes a lot of sense, and you avoid all that extra minutia cost to
Apparently, I know how to use my
get
phone.
across.
So here's the bike trail coming down right here.
Take a look at
Oh,
the-
sorry.
Look at that. Look at that.
Sorry.
That's,
We
traffic,
ended up
from
in
the traffic.
Vegas, Jerry.
I know, well, hey, let's go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not a traffic engineer, but
I get it.
in speaking with our traffic engineer,
There's the gas station
their
right here,
strong
okay?
recommendation is
So
that whatever
you come down the
crosswalk
street, here's,
Right.
that's the end.
gets
Here's the
done,
bike trail.
coordinated with
So why
a
not put
signal.
just a side, like a path right here, and then you can walk across to the
then-
gas station?
Yeah, I mean,
That crosswalk
that
going to
land.
nowhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure whose that is, whether that's
Because there's no sidewalks
project, part of the town's.
across from Deer Street.
And I don't know if that's
For the
wetlands. but
sidewalks all the way to
theoretically, yeah.
85.
Yes, so these are wetlands
Yeah,
right
it's
here.
gotta be, yeah.
But this
Where
is
the
dry
trail-
here, which is right across from the gas
Punch it
station.
right out
They can look into that.
and go right and put a
That
cross
would-
right
that would be
across
better, I
the street
think.
to Garrett's.
David, show me for
What do you
them.
think of that, Jerry?
Say what?
That,
It's possible if, depending on who owns the land, who
Sidewalk
controls the
coming down.
land, and whether or not
If
there's
you go
wetlands.
across,
but
there's really-
It
there's
looks
like
like it's not wetlands, but I
Commercial
don't know.
building over here.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to put a sidewalk in there.
Yeah.
So this is the bike trail. You come
Okay.
down the bike trail and you go right across here, and now you're at the gas station.
So this is this existing bike trail right here.
Yes, yeah.
To add another extension.
Yes, and then you just cross, then you don't have to put a sidewalk coming down to the gas station where everyone's walking
Yeah.
down to go.
Yeah,
good idea.
good idea.
Did you show that to Israel? I don't know if he actually saw it.
I did see it. I don't think we own that land. To put that,
You think it's town-owned?
I believe so. It's part of,
Well, actually, I think he's right. Yeah, see where,
Probably is.
yeah, the town has, Jerry,
Yeah,
see this little red, see this
Yep,
spur right here?
sure.
The town owns that.
Right.
But the trail's over here. So we could place.
we obviously acquired the railroad right away when we put the trail in, so we probably own, that's usually a 66-foot right of way, and the trail's only 15 feet, so there's a lot on either side. So we own some, the town owns something there. I can't imagine there'd be an objection if it met, all other standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just come right over here, and take a path and go right across,
And cut out.
cut across. You don't have to put a sidewalk in on the other side.
Well, let me ask you a question. So, at 85% occupancy for Stone Ridge 2. That's a great idea. Okay, for 85% occupancy for Stone Ridge 2, if that triggers a light at the end of Deer Street, that's also going to trigger, well, the light, the crosswalk, it's also going to trigger a sidewalk.
I don't know if it would trigger a sidewalk.
You're crossing over to nothing.
Correct, and generally, that's what happens is, there's not necessarily a sidewalk requirement as part of that signal light. The sidewalk, the signal is really more a function of traffic.
Right.
So that's what
Not-
triggers.
Yeah, not safety.
Not safety per se.
Not pedestrian
So from a, MIPA perspective,
I think the problem though is like you have these, 3 projects here and your residents are going down and they are crossing the street there and it is dangerous, right? So that's, it's not like, it's becoming a problem, I think. That, what I point out there might be much easier to get done too. You know what I mean? Than go, I agree, we're looking at it today. To put a sidewalk on the other side is gonna be more challenging, I think, but it is a problem though. I think it is a problem.
yeah, and
Because
No,
I'm sure you
I
have
understand.
residents that probably
Sure.
try to walk to Garrett's now to pick up whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we can get, maybe we can have someone take a look at that from the town's perspective, Jerry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm encouraged that you heard us. You're working to make this work, which is, I think, important, especially for the safety of the kids. So I get the issue with the policy of the school department, but, you know, and as far as the bus company's concerned, the kids' safety is far more important than the bus company's comments, as far as I'm concerned. So I have no problem putting a condition in there to have the school department's bus scheduling, and if we have to even go to the point of taking a portion of that road to make it work for the town, then that's what we'll do. But we're still 18, 19 months, maybe 2 years away from this actually being constructed. So in the interim, what are we going to do at the end of Deer Street? Currently, because now you got Stone Ridge 2 being built, and that's going to all continue to flow down to 85.
Can you do a temporary shelter? I mean, when I say temporary, I don't mean, you know, short-term, but, you know.
I would say
one that's-
something.
Yeah, for a period of time.
You know what, and frankly-
Israel's shaking his head yes, so.
Frankly, Stone Ridge 1, Stone Ridge 2, and Stone Ridge 3 should all be involved in this.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, now, when you're full, when you have cash flow flowing, they're trying to help the community and the safety of the community, and I think they all recognize that.
Well, I think it'll work. It's just a matter of the timing of it and getting it done.
Yeah.
And a temporary, you know, shelter at Deer Street, maybe it solves that. One that can maybe be used and moved up to the other
I got, you
location.
know, it blows my mind, and you know, just going by the Memorial School over here, 50, 60 cars on the
yeah.
side of the road,
Yeah.
just waiting to drop the kids off
Yeah.
every single morning and afternoon. And it's like that everywhere.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. People,
It's amazing.
I mean, I used to walk to school, not a
And if-
long
if
distance,
you
but I
those
walked. It
cars
was a big
stacked
deal.
up
My
on Deer
father
Street,
never gave me a ride.
I'll bet he died. I wouldn't expect you to.
None of us.
I never-
They made us walk
We
back
didn't
then.
Now we sound like the old
we
guys.
didn't dare ask him either.
I
We dare ask him.
wouldn't ask him.
What I would suggest is maybe a temporary shelter at the,
Ridge
somewhere
2.
in this, at the end of
Ridge
Stone Ridge 2. That site's currently, you know, under construction, and so we're probably, like I said, 15 months, 18 months away from this being able to accommodate a shelter.
Yeah.
A temporary shelter down at the base of Deer Street would still require all of that work to the,
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Doesn't
I'd
make
rather
any
have the
sense to
buses
do
come up
that.
and do a temporary shelter halfway.
right. So we would propose either putting one here or working with the Phase 2 owner with Fairfield to find another satisfactory location within, you know, Deer Street as they continue to build it out for a temporary shelter until this was constructed.
Well, the question comes, we can provide a temporary shelter. We have to give authorization, someone's going to give authorization to the school department to do that T turnaround.
Yeah, which is more challenging right now,
Huh?
which might be challenging,
Right,
you know.
especially right now, under the.
I think probably what you do is if you put a condition in there requiring that it be done, and then it's up to the school department to decide whether or not, so then it's constructed in theory, they've got to decide whether they want to utilize it or not. We can't, there's no way you can force the school department to do anything against their will.
Yeah.
But you can set it all up so it's there, and maybe they'll see that it can work and isn't a problem.
This turnaround, Jerry, and the roadway for that turnaround. From a legal standpoint,
Right now, Deer Street, up to a certain point around the, it's public up to a certain point around the entrance, just before Stone Ridge, yeah. After that, it won't be public. But again, if it's constructed and it's set up and it works and it's safe and it's going to accommodate kids, I've got to imagine that I know there's a way in terms of town meeting action that can accept the street. You can accept it as a public way, you can accept it as a private way, frankly.
frankly,
Either way, then the public has a right to use it.
This here was probably all accepted as a public way in phases.
No,
What are you doing now?
This theoretically will never be accepted as public normally. It's going to remain private. This would remain private too, but I'm saying is under the statute that lays out public ways, you can also lay out a private way.
But it's public up to,
Right now, it is up to a point, yes.
yeah, so why is it public up to a point?
Because it was laid out by the town of Mendon when Mendon was Milford, in 1715 or something like that.
Right, so I
It's
would
an
consider
ancient
this a
way.
phase of a continuation of a street.
But that would mean you'd be asking the town meeting to accept the ways within the project beyond accommodating
We
the
got the
students.
bridge, we own the bridge.
We do own the bridge, I know, but I'm saying, if town meeting wanted to accept these public ways, fine, but I really don't see
Jerry's
that
saying,
being
what
something.
Jerry just said was, it can be accepted
As
as
a
a private
private way,
way
exactly.
at town meeting, and they still own the road up there, but
But the public has
buses
the right
can
to use it,
access
yeah.
The buses can access it, is what he's saying.
And that's consistent with other
Yeah.
developments that,
Yeah.
you know.
We don't want to end up owning their internal streets
Same way.
anyway.
Yes, yeah.
Privately owned,
Yeah.
but it's the public.
No,
Yes.
and I get the challenge, but, sometimes the safety aspect, and this street's smaller than most of the ones, even in the private developments.
Right.
Some of the ones in the private development, 28 feet wide, these are 26, so I think that alone is a safety issue that needs to be.
And the school bus departments put a squash on this?
No,
We have a policy not to enter private property,
Right.
so,
No, that's not correct. The school department has a practice, not a policy, not been voted on. They have a practice that they don't enter private property to pick kids up.
School bus, the school bus department, not the school department.
No, the school department
Yeah.
has a practice.
Okay.
I'm choosing my words very carefully. They have a practice that they choose not to go onto private property.
Okay.
But then I asked the question what if you have a kid who's autistic, or what if you have a kid who's mentally challenged or physically disabled? And
They do.
They absolutely go on the private property to pick up the kids. So it was a long, very gray answer. So in my mind, what I heard was this absolutely can be done if it's for the safety of the kids.
And the other thing that, it's in the memo, but I didn't mention it earlier, was we would, to the extent that it's necessary, we would provide an easement to the town, to the school, to allow access onto that roadway.
So there's a way that can be worked out.
Yeah.
okay.
We're getting there, Israel. We're getting there.
Thank you. We've been working hard. We did just receive a comment letter back from CEI this afternoon on the civil
Yeah,
peer review.
I got the package, I haven't had time.
I think most of you got it, maybe some of you didn't, but I hope you all got it.
Anything in there that needs to be triggered?
I don't believe so.
You still need time with it?
Yeah, there were a couple of, and I'll let Katrina Correa from SNMA just speak to it real quick.
Hi, yeah. So
Hi,
I'm
Katrina.
the civil engineer with SMMA. And I just looked at the memo briefly, but going through all the standards, most of them were met or met with, as long as we accomplished their follow-up comments. And looking at the follow-up comments, I don't think any of them will be an issue. It's just some small adjustments to the design, so
Okay.
no
So
red flags.
we'll get those updated to
Yes.
finals. And I think maybe for the next hearing, we should work on conditions.
Yeah, in that regard, Mr. Chairman, I spoke to Bob of CEI today, and both they're going to, together with the traffic consultant, typically what they do is give me recommendations for conditions that they would want to see to make sure that things are really tied down. I mean, what the engineer just indicated is true. There are not now any great problems there in terms of the water runoff or in terms of the traffic, but there may be some conditions that they're going to want to put on there. And the water company is going to give us whatever conditions they want. The sewer department, I guess, John was here at the last meeting. I spoke to him the other day, and they've sent the latest submissions into Tater and Howard. He doesn't anticipate any problems, but there'll be a specific conditions that he wants to see on it, too. But then the kinds of things you've talked about tonight, we've got to begin to narrow down to conditions, assuming there's going to be a grant. I mean, that's...
Right.
So Jerry, I'm confused with what Mr. Lopez says about phase 2 triggers a traffic study?
That's
85%
right.
occupancy
Yeah.
in Phase 2.
Okay, but
We did that, we put that in.
Is that a condition on Stone Ridge too?
on Stone Ridge.
I've got a vague
We did
memory.
that Because
so is that, so if it triggers, does that mean like it's a different point in time, they come back and then we
it may
revisit?
trigger a light.
We make sure that there's a light that gets
It
put
may
in?
trigger a light.
Well, you're going to probably put a condition in there which will somehow require, at a certain juncture, when the warrants are met, then the obligation will be on the developer, the owner at that time, to do that. So you've done that in other projects too, so it's not uncommon.
But I would like to address, between now and the next hearing, whether we can actually see if something will work from the trail
Yeah.
across the garage.
Because I think that the trail idea that I came up with might be less
Boy,
expensive.
it's tough to be good sometimes, huh?
Yeah, it can be I think that might be less expensive for you guys to build, and it may be more safer and more productive for the residents up there, instead of going down further down where the Deer Street actually goes. I think it's a better choice for them. And it might work out better for the town, because someone on the bike trail could stop and go over to the gas station if they wanted to, too. So I think it's the best concept or whatever, I think.
Good. Looks good to me. That's the alternative we come up with.
Yeah. What else are we waiting for on this project before?
Again, you're waiting for the sewer department, but again, I don't anticipate a problem, but there are going to be specific conditions that they want, and I think you guys probably know better than I what they're going to be. And so that's one thing. You haven't gotten anything from anybody else that's of any particular negative consequence. It really does come down to just developing the conditions that CEI wants and that the traffic engineer suggests, than what you want, based on what you've talked about here. Hit those specific conditions. A lot of the decision is the model that we used for the last 3 or 4. It'll be the same kind of thing. So we'll have those same kind of conditions, but these are the special conditions that'll be important. So it's going to be important, and I'll have to give it a lot of thought myself to develop these and get language that works.
Yeah.
When we talk about the number of units, is it too premature?
Yeah, you can make a comment if you like.
Israel, how many units are proposed on this again?
150.
150. How's the board feel on 150?
I like 50. Let's take it from there.
It'll get built.
Oh, gee. I don't have to worry about one.
Parking spots on Phase 3.
Well, the requirement's 2 spaces per unit. And again, I know he's talking about taking some out. I mean, I'm looking at that 100 mark, somewhere where I'm at. I don't know where you were at.
I was at 110.
Okay.
I was at 110, because that's what gets us to the 10%. I believe that's the number, I guess.
Well, we're at 11 something.
We're actually, right now, we're at 11.8%. But the problem is for this project and for the others, we're at 9.5 legally.
That's correct. That's
Sad to say it that way, but legally, we're at 9.5. With the one you'll be dealing with next week, we're at 11.8.
150 units, 300 parking.
I'll be giving you a memo that's coming from Larry, not from me. He's going to revise and give it to me tomorrow, and I'll send it out to you. It just wasn't ready today. Where he's suggesting that, in a sense, because everything we're doing now is based on the 2020 census, his attitude is, in a sense, the more the better, because the 2030 census comes up soon, and that's going to change the entire mix. And if we... Again, I don't want to speak for his numbers. He's got numbers that show that if we granted these, we'd be better protected for the distant future from any further 40Bs. That's just something you have in mind.
When's the census coming out?
It's every 10 years, so it's the 2030 census is the next one that will significantly
Yeah, it
change
could
everything.
go up to 15%, right?
Well, the percentage won't change. It says to get to that percentage will change.
Will change.
Because
Let me ask you, Jerry.
Yeah.
And I don't know this, so I'm asking the question. Right now, the towns are required 10%.
Right.
Is there any possibility that being increased by the governor's office?
No, it isn't. The statute has been in effect since I was in high school. It's been around for a long time, and
A lot
wasn't
less people
used...
when you were in high school.
I know that. There were a lot fewer. You weren't kidding. But no, that isn't really going to change. I mean, somehow the whole statutory scheme could change, but from the standpoint of housing advocates, this statute has been viewed as a model to force communities like Milford to
I'm just
increase the
thinking
housing base. So I doubt if it'll change.
Well, I'm just concerned 10 years from now. Because the reason we're here is because our ancestors didn't do perpetual.
Well, part of the reason we're here is because
Bylaw back then.
yeah, we were protected for many, many years. But what happened is about 5 or 6, how many years ago it was now, I don't know. A number of projects in town that used to be federally funded, they paid off their federal loans. And they became totally privately owned and took us from being over 10% down to about 5% overnight.
So my question is, just, yet again, nobody knows.
Yep.
Say 10 years from now, all these communities are
The
saturated. to a
report's
certain
coming out in
degree.
2030. But did you hear that?
Yeah, I
So
heard
the
that, but it's got no
census-
bearing on what I'm going to ask.
Because the census,
It has no
we
bearing on what
could
I'm
be
going to
shocked,
ask.
there'd be
David.
more 40Bs coming in.
If the
Go ahead.
10%
Yeah.
happens to be increased to 12% because of whatever factors that may happen, okay? Would we be grandfathered at this
No,
10%?
well, the legislature could do whatever it wants, so you can't even answer
Yeah,
that
that's-
question.
that's what I'm getting
It's
at.
state law, so the law could change, but it's been 60 years now. I would be surprised if it did, but it's not
I'd
impossible.
be surprised too, but
It's not impossible.
if we say Israel are going to give you 110, rather than 150, which was just mentioned by you, by Larry Duncan, having more, just to cover ourselves, would that be a smarter move on the board's part?
To do lesser, I can't even answer that, because
Not to do
again,
lesser, to stay with what
150.
you're asking for, even though it's going to be detrimental in other regards to the town, whatever the case
well,
may be.
again, and I'm not, because it's not my viewpoint per se, but I'm helping Larry with drafting a letter, but his viewpoint is, in the sense of these applications you have pending, that his viewpoint is that the best thing for the town may be to grant them all, to give the town better protection 5, 6, 10 years down the
That's
road.
what I'm getting at.
2030
Even if they
census.
raise it just to 11%, that's going to just barely put us over. I mean,
Yeah,
anything can happen, we all know that.
Absolutely.
No,
But again, that's one theory,
We're going to be at
that
11
the more
and
the
a
better.
half with this. We're going to be over 11 and a half with this.
Well, we're at,
It'd look so
again,
good if they put it at 12.
you got to remember this. Today, for this one and the other two that are pending, we're at 9.5, period. And it doesn't matter if you grant this one, I would have liked if we could conclude that therefore the other ones would be treated as if they're over 10, but no, they're not. They're all going to be treated as if it's 9.5 today. That regrettably is the way they've structured the law.
When they're all built, though, what approximately where would we be at once they're all built?
God, we'd be, right today, I got to be in the 13% range. I would
Yeah.
think so. If you're going to grant all the ones that are pending right now,
Yeah.
it's got to be in that range.
Yeah.
But again, Larry's theory, and it's a good theory in a long-range sense, is that you want to even maybe do more than that, because then you stop it at some point, and you really don't have to worry about it in 2030 or 2035. I'm not saying it's the right approach, but it's an approach.
Won't be here.
I say deal with it then.
I'll still be sitting right here.
I will say, any number of towns are taking that same approach to, especially where they have projects where they like the location, where, it makes sense to put units there. The viewpoint is, let's, approve the units and thereby create that buffer. We just saw that very same thing happen, in another project in Stoneham, where they were already, essentially at, their limit. Putting that aside, and putting aside, how, mass housing is going to look at this and how the state's going to look at it, we do strongly believe, and, some of it just, we think this is going to be like probably the best set of residential, apartment units in all of Milford. The amenities, and you can go and see what's already constructed at Phase 1, top tier, really high-end, units, and this phase is going to follow with that. So just in terms of, attracting, businesses and younger people to the town, I think this project will serve the town very well. The site itself, 150 units can easily be accommodated within this location in terms of, the amount of open space and all of the impacts. So obviously, we think 150 units is the
Not if I'm going to
appropriate
start
number.
not if I'm going to start doing helicopter training out of one of these areas.
Well, we've provided for the, for the third.
We can discuss the,
potential one, but
anyway.
Anyway,
Clearly, we're not,
thank you.
we're not there on the units. We've got
Yes.
some difference of opinion, so it's not something we probably can't get through, so.
And just so you know, your deadline on this, I believe it's about May, hold on. Because there was a hearing opened on November 21st, so you really got, the 180 days would run like May 18th. So you've got time to work here, obviously, but.
Right, so next hearing, we got stuff to complete, right? So what are you comfortable with?
So Ted, I just got one question. So as far as the crosswalk or the thing like that, we can condition that?
You can put a condition in there that they do it if all the approvals can be obtained, if they can get the approval from the town, if they can get the approval from the state. Obviously, you can't,
Yeah.
make
You know, the trail's much easier to deal with, that's for sure.
Do you
Are
agree
we
that?
talking about just kind of doing not a ADA trail or a paved trail? We're talking about just clearing a pathway, the same?
The trail's already there.
Well, the bike trail's there. It's an extension would be off the bike trail, paving
Right,
it
that's
from
what
the
I'm
bike
talking
trail
about, the extension.
to the highway or to the road.
So just creating a path?
Pathway and then.
You would pave it though, like a sidewalk, you'd pave
And
it.
paint a crosswalk.
But we're not talking about anything in the
Lights.
roadway,
No.
crosswalk or flashing beacon or anything like that?
Well, again, you couldn't do that without state approval anyways. That goes without saying. So any condition they put on that would be subject to state approval.
Right.
I was just, when you go back and analyze the idea, if you come at the end of Deer Street and you have to put a light, you're gonna have to put a sidewalk coming down on the other side. My idea was you have a
Tie into the
paved
trail.
area, you might have to have a crosswalk and a light, but you're not gonna have any sidewalk.
Right.
I think it's easier, I think it's more efficient too, I think, but you can look at that and, give us your opinion
Okay.
the next meeting.
I'd like to,
Yeah.
go back and look at it.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
Yeah.
When's our next?
Well, you're meeting this Thursday, or is it this
Well, yeah, do you want
We're
to
meeting
do,
next week.
You're meeting on Thursday on that Altera one, then the following week
Alrighty.
on the other
And the
two.
week after.
so do you want to do next month with our monthly like we did tonight?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what
What
date
day
would
is
that
that?
be?
It will be March 13th.
Always
Anybody
lucky
going away?
days.
You're going to be in Aruba or something?
Me?
Yeah.
No, the tickets are all sold out.
Ah, well. What time on the 13th?
Do you want to do the 6
6
PM
o'clock?
again?
We'll do the
That's
6
fine.
o'clock?
That's fine.
Today is the 13th, right?
Today is the 13th, yes?
Okay.
Does that work?
Yes.
The earlier time works?
Yes.
Okay. We will continue this till the 13th at 6 o'clock.
Don't adjourn yet, though. Don't adjourn yet. Give me 5 minutes.
Yep. Okay, so with that, your hearing is continued until the 13th of March. And we've got one item to go over with Jerry, and this is in relation to
Stone Ridge 2, actually.
Stone Ridge 2. So as Jerry's passing this out, Bobby,
That's right now.
The 25th. So we're on a Thursday, next Thursday, and then the
Tuesday, the
following Tuesday.
25th.
Bobby, ready?
Still stay live?
Okay. So this is part of the Stone Ridge 2 agreement. This provided for monetary value for the police department, for the firing range. We've got a nice, I think, opportunity here. Jerry can go over it. It's gone over with the police chief.
Yep. What this is, you had that condition, and it's down at the bottom of this first page here, that condition 17 and the prior permit, where at occupancy, they would have to give $75,000 to the town, for the town to do certain designated improvements to the rifle range to make it safer, basically, to eliminate, cut down the possibility of ricochet. So that was just cash money, they give us that. Speaking to the person for,
Excuse me, that happened in the past, correct?
what's the condition in Stone Ridge 2? Yes.
And
Stone Ridge 2.
Let me keep going.
And one, right?
No, it was a condition in the Stone Ridge 2.
Two? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all. But all they have to do is give us a check for
They're
$75,000.
done.
Then we have to go out, hire people, pay prevailing wages, everything else, and the hassle of doing that. So what we arranged a meeting with the police chief, other police officers, and the contractor, because they liked the idea of perhaps they're going to be building, their contractor doing the work, maybe they could do it at less cost to the town, which they certainly could. At the same time, the police chief was able to get from them additional commitments. So right now, the commitment is they're going to do the work that was designated in that condition, plus additional work that is in here under the proposals of this Reed company. So they're willing to do all of that. Of course, it'll be done before. Part of what their thinking was they want to do it as soon as possible, as opposed to giving us money at the end, because they'd like to get it done so if there is any risk of ricochets, the workers there don't have to worry about that. So they really wanted to get it done as a safety matter quicker.
And
This is the
initially,
way we get more work, and they can
we end
save
up
some
getting
money.
more work, they can actually have
Yeah.
the benefit of writing it off under their site work probably with their
Right,
guns.
and they can do it a lot
And we get
better cost
more,
than the
we get
town.
more for the bang of the buck.
Exactly.
So we wanted to get this in front of you guys tonight.
Do we have to vote on it?
You vote to authorize the chairman to sign us an agreement on
Yeah,
it.
you could just do that.
I vote to authorize David to sign.
There you go.
Upon further
Yeah,
negotiation.
further negotiations or whatever.
No, go
Okay?
ahead.
No
Is there a
helicopter,
second?
no helicopter.
No, okay. Second, Bobby?
In favor.
Favor? Aye. Dave, fine? I vote unanimous. Thank you.
Hey, there's the last
We'll work
thing I'm
that
going to
through.
give you each a present since you're here. This is hard copies on that Altera one for next week. So, get them out of the office and...
Jerry, just out of curiosity, what's the town's budget for paper?
Jerry, I'm not
We're not paying for that.
I'm not sitting on this one.
But this one, well, you can take it anyways. You can study it.
All right, so
Something to read,
do I have a motion to adjourn so that we can... Motion by Mark to adjourn. I have a second by Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Jerry,
Good night.
this one